What's up with the cat? Where's
She's
the cat? I don't see the cat.
the cat's over here on my. She's in my guitar case now.
That sounds cute.
It's fine. Nah, she's a cat, but she's a little how should I put this? She's
Needy, emotionally disturbed,
mean as shit.
mean as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the subtle phrase you were looking for.
Yeah. No, she's a nice cat, but she sometimes like she'll lay like in a doorway. So
Yeah.
you can't step around, you have to step over. I should say, so I have to step over because I've never seen her do this with anyone else. And then when I step over her, she'll like get my foot. Like I've got scabs on my fucking leg right now from when this cat's tagged me. I'm just trying to walk in my room, and she's like, "Answer me, my riddle 3." I don't know.
Riddle 3. Yeah, dude.
So we are live, sir. Live tunes with Kendall Burks.
Hello.
Kendall Burks, serenade us. Play us a tune, Kendall Burks. Play us a Baroque improvisation on the roads.
Oh. Nope.
Damn. How does a Rhodes even work? It's not really a piano, right? Buddy?
Well, there's like I don't really know how it works. There's like these there's like these metal keys and they're struck, and then it's like an electric guitar where even if you don't have amplification, you can hear
You can
it.
kind of hear it a bit, yeah.
And it's just amplifying that small acoustic sound.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. You know.
Cool, man. There's gonna be a lot of no one's watching, so I'm just gonna really quick. I want to try to get rid of the like. Do this. Well, that kind of works. Yeah, that kind of works. Does this work? Oh, sweet. All right, cool. Well, no, now we look all boxy. There's a way to do this. You know what? Oh, I don't even care. I'll just do this. God dang it. Gosh darn it. Gosh darn it. All right, that works. That works good enough, I guess. I don't know how to technology, Kendall.
You don't know how to technology?
No.
Are you trying to change the formatting of how it looks?
Nah, so like every time, so like I'm not watching in OBS. I'm watching you I'm watching. Oh, we have one viewer. That's cool. I'm watching you in Zoom, but every time I move, I get these buttons that come up, and so I don't want them to show up on the stream, but I have to have the buttons because I have to be able to use Zoom. And I thought there was a way that I could keep the aspect ratio, but I could just crop out the bottom and the top, so I don't see those buttons. But now I can't figure it out. It's just like squishing our video. It doesn't really work.
That's not what you want.
It doesn't really matter. If you're watching this, then you're probably just watching Kendall, which is good. Don't look at my face. It's funny because I've never been a technology guy. Like the most I've gotten into it is like, well, just owning pieces of technology, but like using like a complicated software, like with videos and music and stuff. I don't fucking understand anything. Like,
Right. Sort of like the minimal amount necessary to do the minimal amount
yes, yes.
necessary.
Well, and even that I don't fully understand. My friend helped me get this whole thing set up.
Right, right.
And then I kind of just filled in bits and pieces from there, but
Well, it's not for everybody.
that's true.
And you know, I don't know. Yeah, the more we move into a technologically dependent society, it's impossible for people to have a basic understanding of, the technology that is ubiquitous. It's like
Right.
sort of a weird trap we're in.
Yeah. There's a really
Why we should all
interesting.
just go live in the forest
Well, it's
by
funny
ourselves.
because isn't this kind of sort of one of the reasons, or sort of one of the isn't this one of the sort of arguments for something like a universal basic income, that what's happening is um we're losing out on the bottom end of the population, as far as like I'm already going to get into dangerous territory here, as far as just intelligence, because those people
Hmm.
would normally be manual laborers. And by the way, I want to count myself here. I do manual labor. And that basically, as you relegate the majority of the jobs to like to having a requirement of a certain sort of like technological proficiency, and just
Hmm.
sort of higher than average intelligence, then you're sort of cropping out the lower echelon of society as far as intelligence goes. And that's sort of like one of the sort of ideas behind universal basic income, is that you're going to have that there's a growing portion of the population who are finding fewer and fewer jobs, because they're you're talking about people who are on the lower end of the like education and intelligence scale.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
like they're
we
just
can't just let
they're
those
yeah.
people fall away because the smart people have come up with new technologies, right? Like, it's not very
Hmm.
humane. So,
Yeah, it's not humane. It's not a straightforward, you know, situation because money isn't the only thing necessary to live a meaningful life. Usually, like the reason why people don't like being unemployed is not just because they don't get money. It's because, it's like there's a lack of meaning.
yeah.
And it's hard to give people meaning with a check. Um, that's not to say that it's a completely pointless idea or something, but it's
Yeah.
just
But but
it's very complicated.
but it's difficult, I think, potentially to pursue meaning if you are spending all of your time simply working to just live another day. I don't. I mean, you could find some meaning in that. Like, you will find meaning, I'm sure, in sort of this sort of subsistence kind of behavior, where it's just sort of, think about somebody who is able to earn enough one day simply to pay, like, feed themselves the next, and that's it. They're never able to save whatever. I'm sure you could find some meaning in that, but are you not potentially cut off from other ways of understanding meaning by the fact that you don't make $2 a day? Like, it's not so obvious that you can't, that I mean, I understand there's not a direct correlation between, if you have more money you will be happier. But I also don't think the inverse is true, that you can't make people happier, or you can't find meaning, that there's no correlation between a higher income and a higher level of experience of meaning or happiness.
Right. I guess. Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that. I guess it's just on the other end of the spectrum, giving people the opportunity to not have to work at all could end up being bad.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree, but I don't think that's what people are intending with the idea of universal basic income.
right. It might not be what they're intending. It's an unintended consequence, is what it would. That'd be the
Hmm.
argument.
Yeah.
Like they obviously wouldn't want that to be the case. It's like, yeah, but it's sort of like, well, it's too bad. It's like that's sort of how it happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so like, when I got my $1,200 check, just like everyone else, I didn't just stop working for a month. I was about what I would have made that month anyway. I didn't just stop working for a month. I continued working on the same amount.
Right.
So
It's
it's
going to
like,
be different for every case.
right, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just if you do it for if you do if you say, okay, everybody doesn't, nobody has to work, then a substantial portion of the population will probably not react well to that.
How do you
Like,
know how do you know it's going to be substantial though? Because my whole thing is, it's clear that not everyone will say, well, good, I can just sit on my ass all day. It's also clear that not everyone will continue to work and continue to, pursue education and things like that.
Well,
So,
the idea is that there's going to be mass unemployment, and so the only way to allow them to survive is by instituting a universal basic income.
mhm.
So these people don't have jobs to do. Our economy has nothing for them to do.
Yeah, but
So the question is, so like, yeah, it's like maybe better to not have them starve, but maybe it's slightly, universal basic income is sort of like a brute force tactic for something that maybe requires a bit more of a subtle touch and an appreciation of human needs.
yeah. Yes. I agree. Sorry, I had to think about it for a second because, I thought you were going a different direction, but you weren't going in that direction. Yeah, no, I agree. It's not simply like you can't just like have this panacea of eventually like we'll simply have higher unemployment, not because people will be lazy, but because we just won't be enough jobs. And just going, well, here's a check. It's like a Band-Aid. It's not really addressing the root source of the
Right.
problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if the root source of the problem is simply that you're going to have a certain number of people, like there's always going to be a portion of the population who will find themselves in the category of undereducated and potentially on the lower end of the IQ spectrum. There's always going to be those people. Now, I think you can move yourself out of those categories. I'm not saying that that's a sort of set, predetermined thing, but people will find themselves in those categories. And so it's like, do we just let people, do we just make people starve, or do we say, okay, there's no jobs for you, okay, but we're going to help you, we're going to give you sort of an income while you are maybe, let's say, getting educated, so that you can bring yourself to a point where you can enter the job market, which is pretty much what we do now, by the way.
Right. I guess it's like the part of the argument for universal basic income is that there is nothing that they can do to educate themselves. I mean, you can talk about, I mean, IQ, like you can't, from what I know about IQ, it's like there's very little flexibility with regards to how much you can, you can adjust that. Like you can maybe, it's like, 5 to 10 points, but it's like, but if you've got an IQ of 85, you're not, it's like there's
Even if you
nothing
can
you
make,
can
even
do to
if you can move
train
it,
yourself.
even if you can move it 10 points, it's not really going to make a difference.
You're still, like the bottom half of the IQ distribution, Now there is, it's like, but you could say that the whole population, gradually over time can shift IQ wise. So like maybe we are in general we're like smarter than we were 200 years ago, or stupider. I don't know but like maybe we're not fucked as a species if you take a long enough time scale. Like maybe maybe all the stupid people just have to get killed off,
I think
and
it's
we'll
I
just like
think it's
gradually increase such that
yeah.
there is a very a minuscule part of the population that can't handle highly technical jobs.
This is going to be the first podcast that I delete because we're talking about IQ, and it shouldn't be a charged subject, but it is. It's also a subject that, to be frank, I only have ever heard people talk about. I don't actually know about the subject, so
Yep, I'm in the same
pretty
boat.
much out of my league here as far as the IQ thing. Yeah, but anyway, so one thing
Okay.
that we didn't really talk about last time, or we started talking about it, and we kind of ended up on a tangent, which was fine, which is great. Was your foray into Baroque improvisation,
Okay.
which I think is super unique because there's plenty of people who go into the realm of sort of period practice in terms of how to treat music in sort of a Baroque mentality and aesthetic, and even going so far as to purchase Baroque instruments. But actually improvising in a Baroque technique or in a Baroque aesthetic is not very common. You're the only person I've ever heard of who does that. So
Right.
I think like to start off, was improvisation, like, can you talk a little bit about the role of improvisation in the Baroque era, maybe?
Sure. So my understanding is that it was more or less a standard part of the pedagogical system in that time. If like learning how to sort of um, realize a figured bass, which is partly improvisational, but even if you're just realizing, um, cat, I don't see the cat. Like
The
there
cat's
isn't
over here.
improvisation in
It's in my
terms
guitar
of like
case now.
uh like a jazz, taking a jazz solo or something like that doesn't really happen. Improv, but there but there is like you could improvise on a bass line, like you could have a given bass line
Mm-hmm.
and improvise different realizations of it, and as a Baroque performer you'd be expected to do so and understand the standard sort of harmonizations for a given bass line. But like flexibility in that regard as a performer was just standard practice, and like the idea that Bach, would improvise fugues is sort of regarded as this sort of miraculous phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
whereas in fact it was fairly a standard thing for people to learn how to do. Like you had to be an accomplished performer to do that, but it wasn't like only the geniuses could do that.
Yeah.
Like he would, he was probably improvising fugues at a genius level, but he
Sure.
wasn't the
Yeah.
only one improvising fugues. Like
Well,
yeah.
the sort of status of Bach as a genius is something that's somewhat contested, because he was considered a genius when he was young, but during his what we might call his prime, his middle ages and his late ages, he was actually considered somewhat old fashioned for the time, and probably was still considered a genius. But some people contest the sort of role of Bach as a genius at his own time, but yeah. This idea of like improvisation being something that you are sort of just expected to do. As you pointed out, it's not like jazz where you're basically continuously improvising in some way. Like 95% maybe of what you play as a jazz musician is going to be improvised. But it's actually a relatively small portion of what you do is improvised, right? Like the majority of like your pitches and your rhythms, that's all dictated to you.
Well, I'd say that maybe that's not even the case. Like you could just be given a bass line, and like, and your job is to realize that bass line. Like, but even just free keyboard improvisations where you just go and there is nothing given, like it's like I guess there is a higher degree of improvisation in that period than just like ornamenting in a excessive fashion.
Yeah, because
like
what I'm familiar with the improvisation, and you've definitely done a little more research, so I obviously defer to you on this one. But I guess like what I've always heard as far as like Baroque improvisation is, it is those sort of smaller details, like well, I say small details. They're not actually small details. They're actually really, really, really fucking important, like dynamics, and ornamentation. Like, do you or do you not ornament? How much do you ornament? What kind of ornaments do you do? These are actually really, really important structural
right.
things.
They're difficult. Right.
But there are times when you would improvise in a much more free and in a larger structure, like the cadenza, for instance. For a concerto or in an aria, which they're two different things when it comes to vocal music and concerti. But like in a concerti, it's this sort of extended free time. Like there's no strict pulse or beat where the composer is basically, or not the composer, but the performer, the soloist is playing by themselves. Later in the Romantic period, you do get some sort of interjections by the ensemble in the cadenza, but that's not really standard. Really before like, I don't know, late classical period, probably. Yeah, something like that. Sorry. But like Mozart piano concertos. If you played one of those piano concertos at the time, you were expected to improvise your own cadenza. And it's a pretty recent phenomenon, as in like the past maybe 100 years, that you start to get composed cadenzas included, but they're typically not composed by the composer, right? Which is interesting. So there are these sort of larger structural periods where you do get to improvise, but again, it's not. It's like if you were to sort of measure the ratio of improvisation to sort of preordained music, like it's maybe even closer to 50-50 than jazz, which would be like 95-5, you know.
Yeah, and that's difficult to say. Like, and it depends. Like for jazz, right? I mean, often like there's free jazz where they're not referencing a tune,
Yeah.
but like in I guess most, I don't know what the ratio is, but in most jazz, there's a harmonic structure that's repeated and that's constraining the improvisation.
Right.
And it's like what percentage that is. It seems like a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Probably
it's
most of it.
but if but I don't know, like in the like improvising a prelude or something, like that would just like you're relying on stock harmonic formulas, but you're real, it's more or less 100% improvised, and that's not uncommon in the Baroque period, as far as I know, like that. But I don't know, like my own, like you hear stories about Bach improvising, Mozart improvising, Beethoven improvising, like all these famous composers were also players, were also improvisers. And for me, partly the interest in improvisation is the implications that it has for fluency with a language. And so for me, that's a big part of what I've been trying to do, is just to increase my degree of fluency. Like a lot of what I found is that like earlier on, like I would compose things, but it would be sometimes, not all the time, but often it would be a bit of a struggle, like to just discover what the notes are. Like whereas somebody like Bach, there's this voluminous output, and it's like, well, one way to explain that, like, he's just a genius, or like another way to explain it is he had this, he had thoroughly absorbed this language and mastered this language and had a fluency over this language, and such that he could improvise in that language and come up with sort of compelling music just improvising. And then when he would go to compose it, like, sure, he would work it out in greater detail, but the basic ingredients are there, and he's just sort of writing it down and sort of smoothing out the edges.
There's two other options too, actually.
What are the two other options?
Well, one of the other two options, it's called option 3, is that he was literally dictating the voice of God, which is a very compelling idea. No, it's a very compelling idea, and it's one that Bach actually said himself. He believed that he was speaking to God when he was composing. The second possibility is it was his fucking job to compose, and he had to compose all the time, and so he just composed all the time because it was what he was paid to do, which is a lot more mundane.
But the question is, how did he manage to do that? Like,
right,
what is the technical facility? And you could just,
because Vivaldi composed all the time as well.
Yes.
And he's definitely less played than Bach.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of these composers have voluminous outputs, and like the thing is they're not reinventing their language all the time. They're constantly recycling things, and you have the same thing in Balinese music. Like there's sort of stock melodic formulas. There's stock kotekan and like ways of realizing a melody that they can rely upon as a part of the language that they've inherited, and that they can just use freely and combine and recombine. They're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's not like every composition is a brand new language or structure.
Yes.
Well, it might. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so there's degrees of innovation that can occur, but like the point is that they're drawing heavily on a pre-existing language, and there's less of a concern about originality. There's less of a concern about like borrowing things that they didn't come up with. It's sort of like there's just this sort of openness to utilizing a collective aesthetic stockpile and vocabulary.
It does even seem like the idea of like that there's a process that these people that a composer is actually engaging in. Like when you sit down to it's funny because like with Brooks Clark, who I was talking to earlier today, we briefly touched on the idea of drawing a face, and I can draw stick figures. That's what I can draw, but I can't draw anything beyond that. But I've watched videos of people drawing a face, and they always start with this sketch drawing,
Yeah.
even like the photorealistic ones, they start with a vague sort of oval shape, and then they kind of fill in the eyes and sort of the outlines of the nose, that kind of thing. And so what that tells me is that there's a process. The fact that I've seen so many of these videos and it seems like they're doing the same, maybe someone puts a nose in before an eye. Who cares?
Right.
But there's this outline, and you slowly add these layers of detail to it. It's like there's just a process, and so when you get familiar enough with in this case Bach, and in my case particularly like the cello suites, there seems to be a little bit of like and I don't mean formulaic in a bad way, by the way.
No.
Because people level the whole formulaic thing to pop music as a sort of pejorative, and I don't think following a formula is a bad idea at all. But there does seem to be, like, not only is there fluency with the language, there's also fluency with a formula for how to construct things.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of like if you're a writer, you're gonna have fluency not only with the English language, you're gonna have a high level of control there, but you're also gonna have fluency and control over building an arc. How do you sort of take control of this hero's journey idea, if that's the arc you're following, and how do you kind of set your story into the sort of slots of that sort of more abstract meta narrative.
Yeah. And for me, I've become very interested in thinking about my own artistic development in terms of building up my own language that I can rely upon to generate information generate music in a more or less formulaic fashion.
Right.
And but like, to me, that doesn't, like when you use the word formulaic, I think it touches upon something that is maybe like a shortcoming in our culture, our capacity to recognize that there is such a thing as a valid way of creating that doesn't involve just, it's like, I think for me it seems to stem from sort of like an excessive adulation of the individual and the individual genius. It's like this idea is that it's like you're just, you're channeling this thing from God rather than you're just relying on this collective language that you've mastered in a purely technical sense. So like there's this dichotomy between like artist as craftsperson versus artist as inspired genius. And like, for me, it's like partly doing the Baroque stuff has been discovering what it means for me to sort of embrace the idea of artist as craftsman rather than artist as inspired genius.
Yeah. It's really easy to fall into that trap, isn't it? Because we're kind of fed this trope of artist as this sort of, there's this outlier, this weird guy. Have you ever seen the movie Amadeus?
Of course.
I've been rewatching that movie over the past 2 days.
It's a classic.
Really bad at paying attention to movies. I end up watching an hour of a movie and then being like, I gotta do something else, and I forget. So it takes me 3 days to watch a movie. But one of the things I was reading I don't know where I read this actually. I don't actually remember. It was on a comment thread somewhere about the movie, where someone was kind of pointing out that the portrayal of Amadeus in the movie has been panned by critics and by people versed in Mozart's actual life,
actual biography,
as being unrealistic. But what they fucking forget is that what you see of Mozart is being told by Salieri to the priest. So all of his exaggerated mannerisms, his stupid laugh, his exaggerated clothes, they're all fantasies in Salieri's mind. Like, they're all
interesting.
The negative things that Salieri saw about Mozart, but he's amplified them. The fish was this big to Salieri, you know what I mean?
Right.
But still, like, there is still that trope. I mean, I've seen that movie like 5 times, and it was not even my idea how to look at this movie this way. I just stumbled upon someone saying, you should fucking watch it this way. But we are fed this trope, and an example is Mozart in Amadeus of the creative genius is this person who is detached from reality, and they're flighty and they're indulgent, and Mozart was those things, and I don't want to say that he wasn't, because he clearly was, but he was also the outlier. I mean, he was composing at the age of 4. This guy was a freak. Like, he was an aberration in the best way. Something mutated in his brain somewhere, and it happened to work out for him, One in a million or whatever,
Right.
but most artists are not that way. They're just normal people. It's funny because like when I was a kid, I had this idea of an artist as this sort of whatever. And when I ended up, like in middle school and high school, going to summer camps and things where I was working with, I shouldn't say working with, but studying with like trained symphony musicians, I remember thinking, you seem like just a normal guy I'd run into like at church or at a coffee or like literally anywhere, the grocery store. I could walk by you in the grocery store and I would never go, oh, that guy must be a musician, It's just normal guys,
Right.
and girls, normal girls too. Sorry.
Right, and well, there's this. So there's like this mystification of the artist. It's like mystique, where they're like, some like
that you must somehow be in tune with some other reality.
Right,
Maybe we are.
The same thing is that same sort of cluster of ideas is responsible for the idea that I'm not is like people claiming that they're not musical at all, and stuff like that, because they think that it's some mysterious, thing. Whereas it's like all you got to do, it's like, okay, you go somebody who sort of knows how to teach, and they're like, all right, press this note. If you're learning the keyboard, like learn this, okay, go home and do that, do that 500 times, okay, press that note 500 times, and they get back and they're really good at pressing that. All right, press that note and then press this other note. All right, and then go do that 500 times, and then you do that over the span of 3 years, and you probably can play a few songs, and there's nothing inspired about it. It's
if
work.
If any non-musician happens to hear this at some point, we should be clear. Kendall is being hyperbolic. That is not actually how people teach piano, but it's pretty close.
Play this note.
It's pretty close.
I mean, that's what I do. It depends.
Well, you're okay, whatever. But no, but I understand what you're saying. Or like people who and I don't mean this disparagingly, by the way, but I've had a couple of adult students who are like, I played such and such instrument for 3 years in high school, and then when I graduated I went to college and I stopped playing, and then now I'm now it's 89 years later and I can pick up the cello again, and I really wish that I had stuck with it, and but I just didn't have it. I didn't have it in me. I really wasn't.
What does that mean?
And it's like, well, of course you didn't have it in you. You played it for 3 years, and you probably only played it when you were at school, which is what most people do when they are learning an instrument in high school.
They don't practice. Yeah.
No. I mean, and this person in particular was, I asked them, did you ever take private lessons? No. Well, that's why, you're not going to learn. Everyone knows you don't learn things in class. You learn things on your own, I mean,
yeah. Well, and you learn things through a systematic means of identifying weaknesses and slowly building up incremental ability.
Yes.
Skill.
And what is that called?
I don't know. Learning.
Practicing. No, it's just called
practicing.
practicing.
Practicing. Right. It's called practicing.
Yeah.
And people, and I guess, but the thing is, it's like people tend to, I don't know. It's believing that we have a fixed set of abilities.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems to me that it's very hard to determine precisely what set of abilities anybody has.
Yeah.
And the potential that they have is completely like just impossible to guess, but it's usually very high, and if they were to apply themselves in a disciplined and systematic fashion towards a particular, like the idea, it's like the idea, oh, well, if you just applied yourself, you could achieve anything. It's like, there's a part of me that's like, because it's like, people like laugh at that, like you just did, but it's like.
Well, I'm laughing in agreement.
Right.
I'm laughing finally someone else thinks this way. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I think people underestimate that, but it's like, well, what do you think it means to apply yourself? Like, what? Like, is that like some easy thing? Like, no. It means you have to orient your whole life, sacrifice a whole bunch of shit, and just spend a lot of concerted effort in this one domain, and like be very self-critical, but very but open to changing and moving.
Again, Kendall is being hyperbolic by saying if you sacrifice your entire life. No, if you spent an hour, yes, some of it. If you are 35 years old and you've never played an instrument before, you've never seriously tried to play, if you spent 1 to 2 hours a day only on weekdays practicing with focus and intention, and not just dicking around, but practicing with focus and intention, and having a teacher helps. I think you could do a whole fucking lot of work in 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is not a lot. And I actually have an example of this. And I don't want to say his name. But I went to grad school with a guy who was a composition major, and he never grew up playing music. He never went to college for music. He actually went to college for something completely different. And he was in his late 30s when I was going to school with him. He was getting his bachelor's degree in music composition. And I played a bunch of his pieces, and he was really, 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 really good. I loved everything this guy did. And he was a killer trombone player. He had picked up trombone a couple years before he went to college. But he fucking ground at it for about 4 or 5 years or something, and ended up getting into Denver University of all places, to get a bachelor's of music and composition. It was something that he was really damn good at. And this is not somebody who spent his entire life in a practice room, his entire life playing music. It's funny because like. Sometimes people ask me like, oh, how long have you been playing? 18 years. Oh my God, 18 years. I started when I was 10. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I've really missed the boat then. Fuck that. I probably wasted the first 9 years of my life playing music. If I had started when I was 19, I might be exactly where I am right now. Like, there's no reason to believe
not all years are the same.
No, there's no reason to believe that the average 10 to 14-year-old is going to be first of all is going to be practicing regularly, and second of all is going to be practicing efficiently. That 1 hour maybe will do what 5 minutes would do for an adult,
Right. An adult who's like learned through a painstaking process how to do that efficiently, because it's actually really fucking hard.
It's actually really hard to do that. Yeah, it's not even hard to learn. It's not hard to learn how to do it. It's hard to actually do it. It's actually pretty easy to get a pretty good grasp over what are some pretty good techniques. I can jot them down in 20 minutes.
If you have a good teacher that knows that.
That's true. Yes, yeah.
And he can tell you this is what you should do.
But it's being able to extend your discipline and your attention beyond a couple of minutes, and being able to extend it over an hour, and spend 1 hour really, really focusing on some stuff. That's hard. And by the way, it's not something that I'm very good at, which is why I'm a shit musician making no money.
Right. Sure. No.
I'm working on it. As you can see, though, I don't have a cello today. For anyone who's listening, is there anyone listening? Let's see who's watching. No watchers. If anyone listens to this at some point, please like this video. 1 like equals 1 prayer for my cello. My cello is not dead. It's fine. I'm getting it back tomorrow.
Okay, good.
It had an open. It had a bad rattle.
A
rattle sound. Turns out I just had an open seam, so it got glued up today, and I'm picking it up tomorrow around noon, which is awesome because I've been itching to play Bach like for 2 days.
Yeah.
I've been working on the Sarabande from the third suite.
Okay, that's a beautiful.
I fucking love it,
man. The parallel minors, man.
Yeah,
fucking it's some good shit going on in that one.
It's also been really fun to really play around with time in that piece. Because if you treat the 30-second note groupings almost like they're grace notes, it kind of changes the flow of the piece. So bum 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 ba da da dun 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 da da dun dun da 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 dun dun da. What if you did
Sarabande?
Oh no, the Allemande. Sorry, Allemande. So instead, if you go bum 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 ba-dum bum bum ba-dum bum bum ba da dun dun da. You can stay in time, but you can kind of treat those 30-second groupings like they're, because you got these big beats. Bum 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 ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dun dun dun. Right?
Yeah, you're actually
bum 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 da-da-dum dum dum. I don't know what I was singing. Was I close? Was I close to pitch?
You were on.
Really? Sorry, I just said really, really loud. That's exciting. I don't have perfect pitch, by the way.
Right, but I guess you remember what that sounds like.
Or I got lucky. I've tested I actually test myself sometimes when I find myself kind of humming or singing a piece that I'm working on. I'm like, am I in key? No, I'm like a half step off, or like I'm like a major third off. So like
right.
I think I probably got lucky.
Right. Okay.
Have you ever seen those videos? Have you ever stumbled across those videos on YouTube? They're like 12 hours long, and they just play the chromatic scale really slowly with a voice going A sharp, B flat, A sharp. And they're like, you listen to this overnight while you sleep and you'll learn perfect pitch. Have you ever seen those videos?
No, man, that sounds so ridiculous. I can't.
It's so
I
funny.
to me, that's, I don't know, man. Like perfect pitch, it's like, it's an impressive party trick,
Mm.
but that's like about it. Like if you don't know relative pitch, it doesn't matter at all whether you know what fucking note it is.
Yeah,
Like,
but I
who
think, I mean,
cares?
isn't it implied that if you have perfect pitch, then you would also have relative pitch?
No, because you have to learn relative pitch. You have to learn what an interval sounds like. You have to learn
Yeah, that's
what a
true.
5-to-1 cadence sounds like. And because it has to do with, absorbing
Wait, okay, so I
conventions.
I always I'm curious because I always thought of perfect pitch as just relative pitch with extra coolness. Like it was the same thing, just on a
Yeah,
slightly
interesting.
like another level.
More extreme. Right. I guess I see them as different skills
Okay.
altogether.
Hmm.
One is like, and you can tell me if you have a different. I'm not an expert on this, but like
Not me neither.
one, right? Like one is like they hear perfect pitches. They hear a note, and it's like they're looking at a color in the rainbow, and they just know that's red.
Mm.
And so if they hear C sharp and it's like a particular shade of red, they just know that's C sharp.
Wait, so
In the
wait,
same
hold
way
on.
that you know that when you look at the color red, you don't have to think about it. You just know it's red. But that doesn't mean like color theory. You don't know how to make you don't know your complementary colors or how to do different color combinations. It's like
Right.
that doesn't.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So
But okay, but just to be clear, you're not saying that people who experience perfect pitch are also synesthetics, right? Like you're not.
no. But
You're using red as an analogy.
Right. When I've
Okay.
had
That's
people,
what it's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
right. Well, when I've had people explain it to me that have perfect pitch, because I don't have perfect pitch. When I have people explain it to me, that's how they explain it. It's sort of like they're all just like I just know what that color is because I know what that pitch is because it just sounds like that pitch, and then in the same way that you identify a color, it's analogous, but they're not necessarily synesthetic.
I knew a guy.
Relative pitch is different.
I knew a guy in undergrad who had perfect pitch, and he told me one time, I don't know how true this is. I mean, he told me one time because I asked him. I was like, "What's it like having perfect pitch?" And he was like, "Dude, it's not just that I can name a pitch; it's that like I can hear all the pitches like super clearly. Like it's a different experience. Like he was like, I don't hear the combination of tones. So like a major third and a minor third, there's no aesthetic quality to it to me.
Yeah.
I just hear the tones." But I don't experience major as happy and minor as sad. They're sort of the same thing. And he was like, whenever I hear a door slam, you are just going to hear noise, but I hear every note that's generated by that every fundamental pitch that's generated by that door slam. And I was like, God damn it, dude, that's depressing as fuck. Like, why are you a musician? He was like, I don't know, I like music. So that didn't make any sense to me, but that's what he told me. That's what he told me about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, relative pitch is like learning to distinguish between.
Right.
So like knowing what the second degree of it, not even just intervals, but like also like knowing what the second degree of a scale sounds like because of a chip tonic, and that has nothing to do with what the absolute pitches are because it's the same in all 12 keys.
Yeah, and well, yeah. I think so. The way that I describe it is that relative pitch, is the ability to hear the distance between tones, to measure the distance between tones. So, well, you have a piano, so play me two tones within an octave, any two tones. So that's a major 6, right?
Yes, it is a major 6.
Okay. So I mean, I don't know what two pitches you played. Maybe it was D and B. Was it D and B?
Nope.
Okay. Was I close?
Nope.
Okay. So it doesn't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter what the actual pitches were, but I can hear the intervals between them. I can hear the distance between them.
Yeah.
and so that's what relative pitch is. God, I'm so glad I got that right. It would have been so embarrassing if I got it wrong.
Okay, yeah, all those hours spent practicing have now been justified.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like that's and intervals are part of it, but it's also just learning scale. Yes, learning what different pitches of a scale sound like, and that's like sort of what you learn when you're learning movable do.
But
So like
but what those pitches sound like is all. This is why it's called relative pitch. What those pitches sound like is all relative to something else. So if you just play one
Yes.
note, I can't tell you what note that is. But it's also not really relevant because what's relevant about pitch is the relationship between notes. It doesn't actually matter what pitch is in. Well,
right.
Well, actually, maybe
some people disagree with that.
yes,
but
yes.
but
If you're
yeah,
a key
but
color,
I think
if you're a key
idiots.
color advocate, yes, you disagree.
Right,
So
but
actually,
I think that most people don't hear that. Like, maybe for some people that's significant, but I don't think that it matters for most listeners. I mean, I think that there is a difference, but I think it's more with like register, whether something is high or low.
yes,
I think that makes a difference.
yeah, but that's the entire thesis to key theory or to key color theory. I shouldn't call it theory, but to the key color sort of hypothesis is that because of the register, the notes are going to fall in sort of a slightly different place. So it's kind of like how the reason that higher pitches tend to sound cleaner and brighter is because we simply can't hear the overtones that are produced by that pitch. And the reason lower pitches tend to feel thicker and warmer is because we can hear more of the overtones. So what that means is that you could take a piece in G major and shift it down a fifth to C major, and it's going to sound different. It has to sound different because you're actually going to be experiencing more of the overtones produced by those pitches, regardless of the instrument that it's played on.
Yeah, well, that could be valid, but the question is how relevant is it? Like relative, like if like in for like Bach, for example, since it's just easy to talk about him all the time, like often the cello suites or the violin. The solo violin works, the sonatas and partitas will be played by guitarists, but they will often play them in a different key.
In different key, yeah.
Like it's and like nobody's freaking out about that. They're not like, oh man, I'm used to that, piece giving me this feeling, but it was like totally the opposite. Like that's not the experience. The experience is that is still the essence. The essence of the music is still there. And like you might say, well, it'd be better if it was in the original key. It's like, yeah, maybe that's true, but the majority of the musical meaning is in the relative pitch. Mm-hmm. Like in the genius of a given composition. If Bach wrote all of his pieces in different keys, if you just randomly scrambled them all up,
yeah, you'd be able to analyze them in the same way. Like
yes, he would still be the greatest composer of all time.
Right. Yeah.
So the question is like how much aesthetic significance is there and so there might be some, but it's not really that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to God damn it sounds elitist what I'm about to say, but I think it might come down to the level of discernment of the listener, like.
Yeah, but okay. If
okay, so
0.001% of the population thinks that Bach music now sucks because it's all in different keys,
I don't think that would happen. I don't think that would happen. But at the same time, like I take so like I like it. I don't do Baroque improvisation because it fucking escapes me. But I like
because you haven't tried.
Well, that's true. But I do love to improvise, and I try to put it in every practice session. I try to either in the middle or at the end. I try to just add in some. I can just play whatever I want. But I do because it's my language. I do tend to say like, well, I'll play in a certain key. Like I really like playing blues kind of licks on cello. It's really fun. I find myself gravitating towards E and D minor, in part because they are sort of easier to play, but so is A minor. But I find myself gravitating towards D and E for some reason. I don't know if I just like, I think it's because I just like the sound of those keys. I could play blues in A minor just as easily. It's literally no difference to me as far as like E's or whatever. Obviously, they fall in the instrument differently, but I find myself gravitating towards those things,
If you were to force yourself to improvise in A minor for the next 3 weeks, I wonder if you would feel differently.
I might. Yeah.
Like it might just be a
But the fact that I haven't fallen, but I have
It could
improvised.
just be random. It's like the wind blew one day,
I've
and
improvised.
you are now doing it this way.
At this point in my life, I have improvised in every key, major and minor. Some more than others for sure. Because I like taking advantage of open strings. I think it's fun.
String instruments are it's good to do that.
Well, and also it's difficult on cello to just relegate yourself. Like I could relegate myself to a key that has no open strings. Okay, it's not very fun. It doesn't actually sound that good on the cello. What sounds good is like things like G major, D major, A major, because you get a lot more sympathetic resonance. Like E flat major, you can't play your A string.
Well, then Bach fucked that one up.
No, he didn't. He didn't though. Because he what's interesting about that piece, and I really one of the things that I intend to do is I really want to sit down and do I'll probably never end up getting this down to this, but yeah. He goes right to the dominant one, which is so fascinating. So this actually is what I'm talking about, because the preludes are intended to kind of set up the sort of harmonic and textural language of the rest of the piece. That's sort of the function of the prelude, right? But the preludes pretty clearly do not follow the same harmonic structure, and I think a lot of it comes down
each other.
Yes. So like,
I don't know about that.
Really? What's the harmonic structure of the first prelude?
Like, what do you mean?
What? Okay.
Well, there's an opening statement.
Yes. What's in
the original key?
What's
on the home key, and then they moved, and then there's a move to the dominant using a 2-5-1.
It's one. No, it's no. In the G major prelude, it's 1-4-5-1. That's the progression that's the opening.
Right. There's an opening statement, and then there's an open. That's 1-4-5-1.
Yes. What's the opening? What's the opening progression for the fourth prelude?
Oh well, it's it's a different, but it's
exactly
it's the same. Okay, but after that, there's a lot of similarities. Like if you you could do the same thing. Look at the if you compare all the major movements, like G major, E flat major, C major, D major.
Why would you only compare the major movements?
Well, because he usually uses a slightly different harmonic layout.
Yes, and he uses a very different very different harmonic layout for his major preludes as well. Clearly.
Okay. So opening statement.
Yes.
Sometimes it has this 1-4-5-1 or sort of tonic, predominant, dominant, tonic. But sometimes there's the 1 5-4, 4-5-1. That is a similarly formulaic thing. That's actually a name for that progression.
I have.
And then hold on. But you have to think about it as an opening statement in one. But then what he usually does
I can mute you, right? I can put you on hold, right?
But all I'm saying is, like, if there's these details that are different, that doesn't mean that the whole harmonic layout is like a lot of it is the same. Like, and we could go through. I've analyzed deeply. So if there's an opening statement, then it usually modulates to the dominant. Then it usually modulates to the relative minor through a sort of temporary modulation of the subdominant minor, right? So and then after it goes to the relative minor, then it usually modulates back to the tonic with sort of
all right. Yeah, okay, yes.
It does the same thing every time.
Yes, it does. I agree.
In all the preludes.
Okay.
And if you look at the preludes of the Well-Tempered Clavier, it does the same thing.
Okay.
There's like a lot of I don't.
Okay. Okay, you're correct, but my point, all
right.
Okay, fine, you're correct. Let me slide. By the way, if I ever get famous, someone's gonna dig through this shit and fucking be like, Joseph Engel, owned by Facts and Logic, by Kendall Burks. Okay, so sure, yeah. So you're right. But my question is still,
Okay.
These underlying structures, as you point out, seem independent of the key that they're written in. Fair enough.
Totally.
So why then would Bach write in different keys? He's writing for the same instrument. Why would he not then write just 6 suites that are all in G major or D major or C major. Things are easy to play on. E flat major is not an easy key to play in. And it especially wasn't easy to play in at that time. We know that the level of virtuosity has risen as time has gone on, and we know that the demands on the players were not as high for as far as cello players, were not as high at that time. And yet Bach chose E flat major, which he would have known was a challenging key to play in. He would have known that, and yet he chose it anyway. No, and he chose it still following some, as you pointed out, some sort of underlying consistent harmonic structure between the other suites. So my question is why. We do know that Bach was a subscriber to the key color theory. And so whether or not I agree with that, I think that there may be something to it. I agree with you that the level to which the experience of the same piece, let's say in C major versus A major, the level of difference that might be experienced between those two keys is probably negligible, if not completely unnoticeable by most people. Bach still chose those keys for reasons.
So I think there's different reasons for that. I think partly it's because of the tuning of his time. Like when he's playing keyboard instruments, like the tuning was not, I don't know, I'm not an expert on the type of tuning, but like it's such that D major feels pretty different than B flat major.
That's true. Yeah.
Because like the thirds are tuned differently. Like, so that's a part of it. My other theory for that is that just on the keyboard, different keys feel a little different. Also, so just playing, just how the mechanics of how you play in certain keys. That's but if usually now, and you could tell me wrong. Am I?
Wait a minute. Listen to this. Contrary to what you've been taught, Bach did not compose the well-tempered clavier to promote the equal-tempered tuning system. Equal temperament did not come into use until the 20th century. Bach's motivation for composing the well-tempered clavier was to demonstrate the feasibility of composing in well temperament. Wait, isn't well and equal temperament the same thing?
I don't know, man.
I thought they were.
I don't know. I mean, there is. I don't know. Maybe there is a difference. I mean, that might just be a technicality in my mind because
this is from Waterloo, the Waterloo University fucking math department.
I mean, the point is that the tuning of the keyboard allowed you to play in all 24 keys without it sounding wacky and totally out of tune.
Yeah.
So whatever tuning system he was using, whether there's a difference between well-tempered and equal-tempered, I don't know. But it seems like the general point is that he was taking advantage of the fact that you could do that, right? But now here's a question, like with the color key people, isn't it like when I've seen like the one like Scriabin, he was one of those guys, and I thought I remember seeing like the colors, the spectrum of colors is sort of aligned with the circle of fifths. So if you have C major, G major, and D major, those are all in the sort of the same color spectrum, and if E flat major, A flat major, and D flat major are sort of in another color spectrum. But am I wrong there, or is it? That's what I thought, that like it goes
pretty much. Yeah, I mean how it's overlaid to the color wheel is, so like Scriabin was synesthetic, not synesthetic. Yeah, synesthetic. He actually literally experienced. He experienced color when he heard music. So Scriabin had a whole set of he described all 24 keys in Western music, and he described his association with colors. But it differs very, very highly from Bach. So like
like how they characterize the different keys,
right? Like sometimes it lines up, but not always. Let me find. I've got Scriabin's writings pulled up where he talks about. Oh, this isn't it. Damn it. Oh yeah, here we go. I used to have a whole folder, a whole bookmark folder of these things on my old computer. Yeah. So this is the description of musical key characteristics from the German-speaking community in the 18th and early 19th century. So this would have been in Bach's time. C major is completely pure. Its character is innocence, simplicity, naivety, children's talk. C minor, and so the point I'm trying to make is that not only do they differ in terms of when this is one particular treatise from Christian Schubart. But not only do they differ in the fact, so they're trying to describe these keys, but the problem is that this one particular Baroque treaty doesn't often use colors. It uses these sort of
like just emotional characteristics,
emotional descriptive characteristics, whereas Scriabin literally used colors. So like for instance, C was red, G was orange, D was yellow, A was green, E was light blue, B was dark blue, F sharp, G sharp was like a lavender, D sharp was a deep purple.
That doesn't really follow the circle of fifths in the way that I was assuming it did.
Well, this is just the way it's described here. I'm sure we could rearrange those in the circle of fifths.
No. I mean, like you described a bunch of keys that were close to each other, but the colors that you described were not close to each other. Like I was sort of imagining the color wheel, a color wheel overlaid on top of the circle of fifths.
Oh, right. Yeah. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah.
And that's true, because when I've heard Bach describe it, he doesn't use colors either. He uses more of like the characteristic, like emotional characteristic, like strong and strident and
or like the voice, like this is the sound of angels trumpeting, or this is the sound of melancholy by a well somewhere. Or this is the feeling of having killed a rabbit for the first time, or you know these like.
Killed your rabbit.
I don't know. Whatever. That's not real. But like, it's funny because there are these because it's funny because color is pretty general. Like color doesn't really describe a whole lot. Like green, you can think of a lot of things that are green, but green is not a thing, right? It's a description of a thing, right? Versus like, right?
Go.
Well, like things are green. Like green is an adjective. Like this is a water bottle. It's green. I don't really have a lot of green things around me, but this part of the water bottle or this Snapple bottle is green, but I can't show you green itself. Like green is a descriptor of other things, but these Baroque sort of approaches to key color or key characteristics, I think saying color may be disingenuous because it seems to be more characteristic. Like this is a march in heaven, or like this is a deep melancholy. You know.
So
I made up the killing the rabbit. That's not a real thing.
Right. I like that one. That's
I've never
probably
seen
the best
that.
one.
But they're somehow oddly specific in a way that color is not very specific, right?
Yeah, I guess for me, all of that just strikes me as convention. Like that you associate that for some reason, whether through instrumental limitations or just convention about certain keys, they end up getting associated through time with certain things. Like the fact that C major is tranquil and pure and simple is because it's all the fucking white keys. That's why. And that's the only reason. Like if you were to tune
Kendall, I'm not going to allow this kind of racist rhetoric on my show.
No, man, fuck! I wasn't even thinking about that. Like, if you were to tune a keyboard up a minor third or a tritone or something,
are you saying people who love C major they just love mayo? That's what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if the description that you gave of C major, it's like that just strikes me as like, well, they think that because they think of a piano keyboard.
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's all so if you were to take all piano keyboards and transpose them up a minor third, then people would think, that A major was this pure and tranquil thing. It's
so like, I think that I still stand by my observation that that there may be something to this idea of key colors based on the kind of resonance you get by simply shifting pitches lower and you can hear more overtones. But I think you have a really, really solid point in that how do you determine the cultural component? Because it's pretty clear that so like we were talking about the Bernstein lectures the other night, very, very, very briefly. And like, I have some issues with those lectures, but I think he's spot on with his observation. You really have to contend with his observation of the way that musical scales around the world seem to just match the overtone series. That's really compelling. I think that's something you have to contend with. Like, that's something that's clearly not cultural, because there's nothing cultural about the fact that a single pitch produces X amount of overtones. Like, every culture who develops a string will experience that phenomenon to a different degree than another, depending on what string they create and things like that. But they'll still experience that phenomena even if they don't know they're experiencing it. But there's still a cultural component to how you end up organizing those pitches.
Right. What you do with it, right?
Right. Like, the fact that in the West we've come up with this 12 and this like sort of 12 tone division of the octave, that is purely cultural, but you can still derive it from an objective source. Even if you didn't know that it was derived from an objective source at some point, we can now show that that there is a very strong connection between the overtone series and this development of these musical sort of alphabets.
Totally.
That may have to, but you're right as far as the cultural thing, as far as color, and because and another thing that kind of backs that up too is you get Messiaen, who describes things as like orange and blue with blocks of cascading silver, and yet he's not in a key.
I know, that sounds awesome though.
He is out of a different key.
Right. He's
not even in a key as we would recognize a key.
Right.
There's no key to that. Like, you can't analyze that with sort of traditional harmonic sensibilities.
But I would love to experience music that way, though. That sounds freaking sweet, man.
I would kill to have synesthesia, because so there's a really interesting mini documentary I saw where they interviewed people who have synesthesia, and everyone was like, no, this doesn't hinder my life at all. This makes my life amazing and beautiful. I can't believe people don't experience life like this. Like, music is a visual phenomena, and I'm like, I want music to be a visual phenomena. Are you kidding me? I would love to just put on headphones and listen to music and see shapes and ideas and colors. I have to fucking drink so much vodka and smoke so much weed and drop acid to get that feeling, and you're just doing this. This is just the way that you experience things. I would kill to have that. I would kill to have music, because music is a multi-sensory phenomena, and we take that for granted because sort of 99% of the bandwidth is taken up by the auditory aspect of it. But it's like there's a saying that I was introduced to recently, which is the idea that your favorite music is not your favorite music because of your sort of enlightened taste in music. It's got to do with the associations you have to that music, and it may be a singular event, it may be multiple events over time, but while you could go in depth as to why you appreciate your music and sort of analyze things on a deep level, that's great. The reason that you experience it so positively has nothing to do really with the language or with the whatever. It's got to do with the memories, the times and the places and the experiences you've had on your own with that music.
I guess I wouldn't place it. I wouldn't make such a drastic claim, or I wouldn't reduce the fact of like actual what you might call objective aesthetic quality. No, I'm not trying to be too precise with that terminology, but like the fact that there's the idea that there's everything is all just association, that I don't really buy that. Like, there's probably more to do with association than people give credit for, but I don't think that people just like whatever they happen to like because of some random.
I think it's both. I think it's both.
Okay,
it's both.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So it's both an ability to sort of verbalize, or no, not even to verbalize. I don't think you have to verbalize it. I think it's like your favorite music is your favorite music. Why? That's a good question. I think it's because it's sort of this whole cloud, this whole conflux of not only the sort of like lower level details of this guy did this thing and it subverts your expectations in this way, and the way that this guy uses the guitar is super innovative and I really appreciate that, and this approach to harmony is super, and this one moment is really nice because of the chord progression. But I think it's also your association. Like, I associate classical music with something that's really deep for me. It goes really, 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 really far back for me in my life. I've been playing classical music for 18 years and listening to it for 19. And it goes, I'm only 28. 19 years is a shit ton of my life. Like, it's most of my life. And so while I can talk about it and describe why I like classical music, I think, like, honestly, what's more important to me is just that when I listen to it, I experience something. There's something I experience, and I can't really describe it. It doesn't really come down to a harmonic language or an approach to texture or instrumentation. I think a lot of what it is I have memories of my mom. I have memories of being a little kid and, like, sneaking into my mom's sewing room and, like, putting Beethoven CDs in her CD player and listening to Beethoven 9 and Beethoven 5 and whatever was on that CD, you know.
Yeah, but if you were to go, I mean, like I don't know, it seems like the music that, like the music at least has to have the capacity for you to implant it with those emotions. Like, it has to be sort of an empty vessel, maybe, at least. And like,
Maybe,
and like,
yeah.
and like for me, like, just the fact that the quality of a given aesthetic experience is somehow irreducible or inarticulable doesn't mean that it's not that it's purely in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, and I don't think it's entirely just sort of subjective. I think there are some objective reasons why your favorite music is your favorite music.
But
But
that doesn't mean you can explain it well. Like, you can
you're
usually only
correct.
explain it
Yes.
with other, like, the best explanations of why certain music is powerful, important, is you usually have to use, like, poetic language.
Yes,
Use,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
like musical language to describe music. You can't, as soon as you try to use math to describe it, you're sort of barking up the wrong tree as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree. And what's interesting is my experience has been that I hear some music and I end up getting attracted to it. And then I end up getting obsessed with it. And then I end up being able to describe what I appreciate about it, rather than the other way around. Like, it doesn't start from an academic perspective and then I'm able to experience it in a way that's appreciative.
Nobody fucking listens to music because of the theory. It's like, well, okay, maybe
Some people
weirdos
do. If you're doing that, you're wrong.
But
it's not the way to do it.
But
Well, I shouldn't say you're wrong.
And
There's a
you're not
better
wrong.
way,
It's
maybe.
okay. But, like, the music that they're analyzing wouldn't exist if there wasn't a reason for listening to music that had literally nothing to do with that analysis. Like, the reason that music exists, the reason why people go through these extraordinary pains to produce this, this sort of all these weird sounds, like, the reason why they do that is because there's some significant meaning to it that is irreducible and gripping and compelling enough that would actually motivate your life.
Irreducible is one of those words for me that, like, it's like, how do you know it's irreducible?
Triggering.
How do you? I didn't say triggering. It's not triggering.
Oh, well, but that's what it seems like. It seems like I triggered you.
I'm not triggered.
Like
I'm not triggered.
You with the word, I triggered you with the word spirit last time. Now I'm triggering you with the word.
Okay, but how do you know a thing is irreducible?
So,
like, what is that? What does irreducible even mean? Like, you can't reduce it. You can reduce everything to something. I can reduce this to fucking syrup if I wanted to.
Right. Well, okay.
how do you know something is irreducible?
Well, it's just my sort of perception of what it is. When I try to think about what it is, like, when I try to think about what makes a certain piece of music good, like, if I try to reduce it to say, like, oh, well, this is a really effective way of manifesting this 1-5-1 pattern through, like, in the Schenkerian analysis sort of fashion, like, I'm missing the point. The point has left the room and I am not with it anymore. Like, it's so, in other words, as soon as I try to reduce it, something essential to it is lost. So that's sort of the test.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there is something that's lost when you attempt to sit down and analyze music on any level deeper than just your sort of instinctual experience of it.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do that.
Right, I was going to say, I still feel compelled to do that exact thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, but, like, for me, I deal with this all the time because for the early part of my musical life, I was not analytical at all. And even when I went to school, I was only analytical insofar as I was compelled to do so by the structure of school. But it was like, so I learned how to be analytical in that context, but I was not seeking out an analytical frame of mind with the music that I enjoyed just on my own.
I see.
But
Yeah.
lately, over the past, and it's partly tied up with this attempt to engage with the craft element,
Yeah.
um, through the Baroque improvisation in part, but other things too. But I've sort of embraced slash discovered an analytical frame of mind as a means of learning music and as a means of discovering what I want to do in music. But the constant challenge is to not be deceived into thinking that analysis can tell you what music is meaningful. It's like
Yes. Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
it clarifies the playground, but it doesn't tell you what to do on the playground.
Yeah, dude,
You know,
I think that's a beautiful it's a brilliant analogy. I agree with that so much. There's like you know the analogy of chasing the dragon, like for heroin users, of like it's never as good as the
right,
first time. It's like the first time you listen to an album that just grips your attention, you're like,
right,
wait, what the fuck? Really? Music can sound like this? What the hell? And
right,
that
right.
consumes the next hour of your life or however long it might be.
Yeah,
Listening to it the second time isn't quite the same. Listening to it the fifth time may be better though. You know what I mean?
right,
It's
right.
like
Yeah, yeah,
it's like there is it's not a direct kind of delineation between like how much you enjoy it and how much you understand it. It's not like, or I guess it would be inverse there. Like you enjoy it. The more you enjoy it, the less.
well,
The more you understand it, the less you enjoy it. I think it's a bit more of a give and take. It's like, so one of the God damn it, if you're gonna ever listen to this, Pete Davis, I want you on this program. Reply to my fucking Facebook message again, please, please, please. There's this guy Pete Davis, and he has an album called The Possible Conglomerate. All of his music is brilliant. The Possible Conglomerate it's an hour and a half of just amazing music. Like every moment is memorable. And the first time I listened to it, it just blew my fucking mind. I literally took my headphones off and went, and then I listened to it, and then I listened to it again. And I got to a point where I had listened to it about twice a day for about 2 weeks. And
Jesus.
I wasn't listening to it because I enjoyed it anymore. I was listening to it because I'm just trying to figure out what he's doing. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, like I'm trying to really analyze this deeply.
Well, do you sit at a keyboard when you're doing that, or what?
No, not at all. No,
Or are you singing it? Or
I'm
are
not
you
at all. I'm
analyzing
not.
the chord progressions, or
No,
what do you mean
no.
by analysis then?
I'm trying to figure out. So I'm mostly concerned right now with the structural approach to the album because
Like form and
yeah,
like,
form, because
yeah.
to say that there's a single song that follows any sort of standard form is incorrect. None of those songs follow standard form. Some of those songs are 9 minutes long, and they encompass contradictory and like highly contrasting attitudes and characters and moods and instrumentations and things like that. It's like you could drop the needle at 2 minutes in on a certain song, and what you're gonna hear is a guitar and a voice. Cool, he's just singing, playing guitar. You drop it at 9 minutes, and what you hear is like a weird sampled like vocal melody plus like a guitar plus some cymbals plus some cello. Like it's like it's not really clear how the formal approach is working. And anyway, so it's like there's a really interesting experience when it comes to if you're really trying to understand what's happening in something that you enjoy. You're going to experience periods where you don't enjoy it really aesthetically anymore, but you're still interested in the underlying structure and composition of it. But then you can kind of maybe at some point, hey, stop. Cat scratching my carpet. But then at some point you could move away from that, and you can begin to experience again simply like just the pure experience. Like you're not analyzing it anymore. Like you're just listening to it, and maybe you're listening to it and you're experiencing it on a higher level than you did the first time. You know, that's been my experience with this album. This is one of the reasons I want Pete on, because I think he's a brilliant musician. I think he's so fucking brilliant, dude. I just. That album blows my mind. And what's funny, I sent him a Facebook message, Pete Davis. I sent him a Facebook message, and he didn't respond, so I posted something on his Facebook page, and then he responded, and then I responded to his Facebook message again. He hasn't gotten back to me.
Oh, unrequited love.
Oh God, I just want to talk to this guy so bad. Hey, so this is so to go back to the whole Baroque thing. This was the book I was telling you about that I'm gonna lend to you. Oh shit, my fucking video is reversed. Damn it, that's right. I fucking forgot. I can't change it right now.
It's okay.
Anyway, so this is a book written by Jean-Claude Vallon, which is called The Rules of Music Interpretation in the Baroque Era. I've been looking for this book for a very long time, and a couple years ago, my friend bought it for me. This guy Jean Vallon is a more modern guy. He wrote this book in the 20th century, but he quotes treaties by like Couperin and Angermal and Bach and a bunch of other people to talk about sort of the basic components of Baroque interpretation. And it's a tiny book. It's this big. It's not very large. But this is such a fucking resource. I mean, they give examples from, people like Telemann, Marcello, Hotter. They're talking about, I could just open a page. Let's just do that. Let's open a page. This is French ornamentation. You want to learn about French ornamentation in the Baroque era? This is your book, dude. You want to learn about German orientation? It's on the next page. Like, it's super condensed. So I'll be honest about that. It's super condensed. But this is an amazing book. So the people he cites are Bach, Brassard, Couperin, Hotter, Montclair, Quantz, Romo, Ellenberg, and Rasser.
Must be CPE Bach. I wonder.
I don't believe so. No, I think
Bach,
it's
because I thought that
Bach.
Did he write anything? I thought that he did not write any treatises.
Maybe it is CPE Bach.
But I might be wrong. That's my understanding, is that he didn't like theoretical treatises.
He just says Bach, and the thing is most people who just say Bach mean JS.
Right. Right.
So
that's true.
He does quote J.S. Bach on page 14, 15, 16, 30, 31, 53, 54, 72, 77, and 87.
That's a pretty substantive list.
Well, it does not say, so there's Bach JS, but there does not say a Bach CPE in the index.
All right, well then
examples. That's the index of musical examples. He may not have quoted any Bach treaties, but he may have quoted Bach as far as musical examples. But it's a great book. You should borrow this shit, man.
All right, I'll borrow it.
I've been looking for this book for some. You can't. I was looking for this book for a very, very long time, and then I was a couple years ago. I was hanging out with my friend Savannah. Shout out to Savannah Whitman in Jacksonville. I was back, and we were at Shamblin's Book Mine downtown, and I was in the music section, and lo and behold, what do I find?
That sounds pretty exciting.
That fucking book. But I had like no money, and I was like, Savannah, will you buy me this book? It's like $40. And she was like, sure, man, I'll buy you this book. You pay me back. I never paid her back. So I'm sorry, Savannah. I never paid you back for that book. I owe you $40.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, it's me. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
hey, stop. Outside? Go. All right, she finally left. The fucking cat. That cat has spent this entire time in my guitar case right over there.
That sounds cute.
She's a cute cat, but dude, she fucks me up. You'll be petting her and she'll turn over on her stomach. You'll be like, you're presenting your fluffy stomach to me, and then you start to rub it and rub it and rub it, and then she's all over your arm.
Right.
She's like a switch flips,
Yeah, or she's done. She doesn't want that anymore. Yeah.
Well, then just walk away. Just turn over and walk away. You don't have to eat my hand.
Right.
Kind of need my hand.
Could I go back to something that we were talking about earlier?
Sure. Yes, please. Yeah.
And present a theory. I don't know if it seems like you don't have too much of a filter in terms of like acceptable content. So I'm just gonna assume that like nerding out a little bit with music theory is okay.
Go for it, dude. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so okay, so you're talking about Bernstein's like explanation for why like the universality of certain scales,
No.
or like
No.
the way that like throughout the world scales seem to be oriented around the overtone series.
Yes, that's his point. Yes. Yeah.
Right. How is that different than what I said? That there are the universality of certain scales.
Well, because scales themselves are not universal.
Okay. It seems like
Is
I
the
don't
major
quite
scale
understand.
universal? Do the Balinese use the major scale in their
Yeah, they actually do.
in their traditional music?
Yeah.
Outside of Western influence, like before the West, in like did
Yeah.
did any cultures produce the sort of 12 degree, like the 12 step divided scale with a 12 with a major and minor differential as far as how you group those notes, independent of Western music?
Saying the differences between the scales that different cultures use doesn't mean that there aren't like portions of the structures that are shared between different scales. So like they don't use Balinese don't like they don't use a chromatic, they don't have a chromatic scale, but they do use something more or less resembling a major scale.
Right, and if you orient the pentatonic scale that's presented to you at a certain point in the overtone series, if you orient that scale a certain way, what you get is the Balinese scale. But that's not the same thing as saying that they came up with the Western major scale. Like that's clearly not
Is that what I said?
I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you.
It's not what I said. What I said is that there's a universality to certain, like there's certain scales which have a universality to them.
Which ones?
Well, and like I think the major scale is probably a good example. That doesn't mean that it's always it's used in the same way, or that it's like it just. But that
what do you mean by universal then?
Well, okay, a better, as in like cropping up in different cultures independent of each other.
Really?
A better example than the major scale is the pentatonic scale.
So the major scale is not a good example for what you're talking about.
It's an okay example, but it's not as good as a pentatonic scale.
Just give me your best one all the time.
All right, I'll give you the best one all the time. Pentatonic scale. Specifically the that pentatonic scale, and like that
sort of major pentatonic, like
or
like
minor,
1 2 3 5 6.
Yeah, or 1 3 4 1 3 4 5 7, like in a minor. But that's like it's that structure. So that's, I mean, it emerges all over the place. It emerges in different kinds of African music, and music that's native to the Americas, European music, different, Southeast Asia, or China, Japan, Mongolia, whatever. Pentatonic scales happen all over the place.
Yeah.
So Bernstein's contention would be that is because of the structure of the overtone series.
Right. Another person's contention may be that it's the result of colonization.
Not if the scale predates colonization. Colonization only occurred in the since the 16th century roughly. So it's so if the scales predate that, and you can't point to any sort of cross-cultural cultural I don't know. It's just like sort of recede into the mists of history, and we don't have a very clear feeling about it. But it doesn't. It just doesn't strike me as I don't know. My understanding of it is such that it doesn't strike me as outlandish to think that there would be independent discoveries of these things.
Yeah, 100%. I think what would strike me as outlandish would be the independent discoveries of the treatment of those
yes, and that's clearly
those structures.
Yeah, and that
Clearly
clearly,
not the case, and thankfully
yeah.
so, because I would really hate for it to be the fact
Oh,
that
it sucks. That'd be
at some
boring as
point,
hell.
yeah, it would be boring as fuck. Oh, it turns out that the fucking I don't know, the Native Americans were composing in the 12 tone scale, and they were composing just like Mozart. Ah, this is really cool.
Or
That'd be boring as fuck.
They got to Schoenberg way before he did.
Schoenberg sitting in his office like, oh my god, like no one's gonna take me seriously anymore. Like someone else, I have to escape. I have to get away from here, to another country.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I'm really thankful for that. But I also think it's amazing that if it's true that there is a correlation. Well, it's true that there's a correlation. If it's true that there's a causation between the Overtone series and the fact that you seem to see these same very similar on a low level of detail sort of sonic structures and ways of organizing pitch popping up across civilizations. It's great. If that's true, it's great, because that means that the treatment of those things are going to be purely cultural and not objective.
Mm-hmm.
But because there is some objective approach to it, then that means that
Mm-hmm.
anybody from a given culture can approach the music of another culture and over time develop some aesthetic appreciation of it.
appreciation for it.
Appreciation,
Yeah, dude, totally. I mean, it
versus
seems
like
it's like one way
like
to think about it.
like imagine if we encountered an alien species and they have language just like we do, but their biology is different. They're making different sounds. They're making sounds we can't make. Right? Like we would never be able to speak that language with them. Because they have things that are culturally, biologically incompatible. And the fact that
Unless
you can have
created,
Yeah. What were you gonna say? Unless we created
I lost you.
You lost me?
Oh, unless well, your screen has now frozen. I was your video is frozen.
Can you hear me? At least? It's not frozen on my side, so it's not gonna affect the stream. Your video is frozen. Oh no! This is
I can hear you fine.
Oh, you can hear me fine? I can also hear you.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, my video. Okay, yeah, it's just a video. I'm going to stop my video and then start it again. I don't know.
Weird. I'm detecting a lot of skip frames. It doesn't really matter. I mean, this is the kind of thing where if anyone did listen to it, they would just be listening. But I see your video. You're back. I see your eyes moving.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me?
Kendall? Now you're back to normal.
Oh, sweet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. God damn it.
Yes, and I can see you moving too.
I'm literally one room
I was
removed.
just going to say that.
I'm one room removed from
right.
my Wi-Fi router, so I don't know why this is a problem.
I see.
I have roommates,
all right.
So God damn it.
God damn it, roommates. So, I mean, your point, and is that like you can imagine a scenario in which communication via music or language would be constrained by some sort of fundamental biological difference, such as in an alien race. But you can maybe claim that is not the case, that there aren't those fundamental biological differences which are constraining our capacity to connect with other cultures through their music, despite the fact that they use these structures in such a different way.
Yeah, like my inability to listen to Balinese Gamelan. I still at this point in my life am not able to hear Balinese Gamelan in a way that is not happy in major key. I'm unable to not have that experience. That doesn't make any sense. It's a double negative. I am not able to have the experience of what sounds to me vaguely major key, major pentatonic as something that is sad or bittersweet, or the other ways it's described. Basically, is the in some ways the polar opposite of the way the West construes major sounds. Yeah. I'm still not able to hear that. However, that is clearly not due to biology and is clearly it's clearly a cultural conditioning. Like
It's an association.
there's a
Like you
deep cultural
constantly, yeah.
association between ba da 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 da. That's very happy in major
yes,
key, and
and going to cremations.
yeah, right. And, yeah, exactly. So it's like, but if I had grown up going to cremations, hearing that tonal complex, even not knowing that was how it could be described, then I would have a different experience. Which is what kind of draws me back to Balinese Gamelan, is the understanding that like there's something very, very trippy and very compelling about listening to Balinese Gamelan and going, I'm having an experience that's very genuine. It's very meaningful. But it's clearly not the same experience as someone who has grown up listening to this music. But their experience is just as deep and just as meaningful as mine. Like, I know that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And yet mine is, in a similar way, impactful as far as its deepful and meaningfulness, but I'm not having the same experience, you know?
Well, but I would assume that there's overlap. Like
I would assume that too, but I can't quantify the level of the overlap. It could be 5%, it could be 95%. Like, I might be super fucking close, but I have no way of quantifying that.
Right, you don't, but I don't think you need to quantify it. It's just matter, like maybe your attitude. Like the attitude, you know, there needs to be a degree of humility where you don't just assume that your emotional associations are exactly identical to theirs.
Oh, I'm very humble, Kendall. Have you ever met me?
Right.
I'm the most humble person ever you ever met.
No, they're not you.
Super
but,
super
you know,
humble.
The proverbial you, not yes. I know you're
just to clarify. I'm really, really humble.
Yes, you're the most amazingly humble person I've ever met.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure we got that out of the way.
It's stunning. Yeah, that's good.
Stunning.
Yeah. So, oh shit! No, I don't know. I forget where.
I'm sorry. I distracted the conversation with my nonsense.
Yeah, you did. Well, okay. So.
Well, you have to some kind of humility.
So there's
right?
this ratio of how much of your experience of the music is the same as the other person, and how much is different, and you can't quantify the ratio. But to me, it's like there's no need to come up with a percentage. It's more the need to come up with a plausible understanding of what you think that rough ratio might be, and then correlating that with a particular ethic. One aspect of that ethic is a degree of humility, in the sense that you don't just assume that your emotional associations are identical, but there also needs to be, like, to me, it's not crazy to assume that there's a kind of doorway to connection where you genuinely are experiencing something the same. And I guess I don't know precisely what that would look like in terms of an ethic, but it just seems like like I just
wait. So are you saying
there needs to be a degree of objectivity that is assumed? And like, that doesn't mean that there.
I agree. Yeah. So
I don't know what I don't know.
Right. Like how like, so I agree. There has to be some level of objectivity. It's not purely one or the other. It's not purely objective or purely subjective. It's clearly a mixture of the two.
Yeah, it just seems like that's just a better way to. It's a reasonable description of reality.
I agree. Like, yeah.
And like,
but it's like how do you determine in a given situation the degree to which subjectivity and objectivity are operating together? Because it seems to me like if you were in a situation where 95% of what's happening is subjective, you would treat that differently than if you were in a situation where you could say definitively that 95% of what's happening is objective. Like, you would treat those experiences differently, right? It's like the experience, not to like fucking do that thing where you bring up drugs and stuff all the time, but like, it's one thing for me to have an experience when I'm sober. It's another thing for me to have an experience when I'm not sober, right? I'm still having the experience, and there's lots of experiences I've had when I'm both sober and not sober. But it's like, how do you determine the meaningfulness of those things? Because there have been times when I've listened to an album stone cold sober, and it has meant more, and I've had a better experience than the other times I've listened to it when I've been drinking or smoking or whatever. So it's like, the degree to which the subjective and the objective are mixed together is really important, but how do you actually get to a sort of, you don't have to get to a specific number, but how do you get to any sort of definitive way of saying it's more this than the other, you know?
Well, I think it's like, in general, having humility, but looking for the gateway to connection, like with another person, like looking for, like having the humility not to assume where that connection will be
Mm-hmm.
or what it will look like, or to assume that your experience is identical to theirs, or that your initial intuitive perception is like precisely what theirs is,
Uh-huh.
or that theirs is therefore wrong if it's not the
Uh-huh.
same,
Uh-huh.
but
Uh-huh.
still being open to like finding the thing that is the same, like looking for that, trying to sort of, yeah, like assuming that there is enough of a similarity and that you could get at it if you sort of opened your mind and your ears enough.
That's wow. Yeah.
Maybe that, I don't know.
No,
That
no.
seems like,
It makes
yeah.
total sense. And yeah, no. So it's like finding a kernel of the experience that you can say is objectively we're having the same experience. Like if you and I, if I was like, Kendall, I want to show you a movie or an album or fucking name it, whatever. Let's say an album because it's music, I can turn on the album and it's gonna be the same album. It's doesn't matter if it's your phone or my computer, your computer, whatever. It's the same album, but
Yeah.
at the end of that album, we're gonna have different thoughts and different experiences.
Uh-huh.
But we have that kernel of objectivity, which is the album itself. So we have that thing to refer to. So when you want to tell me what you felt, it's not just an abstract I felt X or Y. It's because it's like I felt X or Y because of this thing. And you can point to, dude, this one track, this made me feel this way. And then I can listen to that and I can go, okay, I feel maybe totally differently, but at least I can, because I have the source material, like I have a way of understanding what you've been feeling. Like I can enter into that objective experience in a way that
Yeah.
is somewhat actually subjective, because I can say, well, Kendall's describe this experience listening to it, so I'm going to listen to it with those thoughts in mind. And I might not experience the same thing, but I might at least understand like kind of where you're coming from, right?
Yeah, and maybe it's the kind of thing that like I could tell you about why or what kind of associations I have with it, like, and you could put yourself in my shoes and empathize with what it would be like to have that kind of association, and then maybe that would illuminate the piece where then you go, oh yeah, I see why you felt that way about this, or and like there's maybe, I don't know, it's like there's some extent to which we are kind of stuck, isolated consciousness, and we're kind of these islands of consciousness. But
Do you
to
think?
me, that
Yeah, yeah.
you need to be able to assume that there's some common ground that we can genuinely connect with. um
Do you think that like it would be possible for, let's take your album Waves for instance. I love Waves. It's good. It's a great
Sweet.
album. Okay, so what do you think it might be possible? No, it's actually not a good example. Um, let's take an example of an album that neither of us had any involvement in creating. Whatever, name an album. I don't know.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Not an album that I am really super familiar with, to be honest. I know about it. I played some
would
songs.
it be better if we picked one that was more?
No. Actually, it would not. It would not, because this is actually a perfect example, because you've listened to this album a lot and I have not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't name a single song off that album. I could name a few Pink Floyd songs and I might get lucky, but I don't know that album enough to even name one song. Okay. So.
Oh man.
No, but so like, let's say you and I sat down and me and you together, same couch, on the same speaker, and you played that album for me. And neither of us talked the entire way through, which is the thing you should do when you listen to music with your friend. By the way, those of you who are like, your friends like, I want to show you a song, and they play a song and you fucking chatter through the whole thing, fuck you guys. Listen to that fucking song. It's 3.5 minutes probably. It's just shut up. Just shut up and listen to it. It's good shit. Anyway, let's say you and I were hanging out together and you were like, I want to show you this album, and you played me Dark Side of the Moon, right? we're both going to have the same experience in the sense that we're in the same room, on the same couch or whatever, listening to the same album. I'm going to have some experience because I've experienced it for the first time, and you're going to have some experience because you've experienced it for the 90th time, okay? And then you tell me, I tell you about what I experienced, and you tell me about what you experienced, and then we listen to it again. And this time, I think I experienced the same things that you experienced on the 10th time or whatever. Like, can you by talking about music bring somebody to a different experience of it? Like, I'm not talking about understanding.
That's
I'm not talking about
question.
like theoretical, but like like
an aesthetic impact.
Yeah, like just by, I don't even have to go into depth about it. I don't have to spend an hour to give me a speech about it. I can just say, no, I think X, Y, and Z and 9 and 10 about it. Boom. Let's listen to it again. And then, or you could say that, and then I have a completely different experience.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard to know to what extent language can illuminate something like that. I don't know. Like you were talking last time about going to that metal show in Bali and doing this.
Yeah.
It's like this thing. What that means is like and partly because of where you are, you just were at the show, and so they know that you're talking about music with this.
Yeah.
They know that you're talking about metal,
right? Specifically,
and so there's a
and that I'm saying I like this.
Well, yeah, right.
You don't do this at a metal show if you're not having a good time. You know what I'm saying?
Like, God, this sucks.
This is so bad.
Yeah, this is so bad. Yeah. So but you're drawing upon a kind of shared experience that's just a given. But like, if you just went up to your parents and went like that, that would not help them to get it. It's like, this is a sign for something. After the fact, it's like, can you describe vision? Like, can you describe
as someone who has done this to their parents and whose parents have gone, huh? It doesn't make any sense. You can't do this to someone who doesn't like metal. Yeah.
Right. So that, like, it's like the particular experience of metal that is meaningful, like, cannot be translated like by this. But if two people have the experience of metal, they can use this to accurately sort of sign to each other that they've had that experience.
Yeah.
And it's reasonable for them to assume that there's some relevant core of their experience that is shared.
Yeah. But it's about experience, not knowledge, right? Because you can know that this means a metal sign, but if you have no idea what it. Yeah, but it really only means something based on how you've experienced, like the experience that you associate with this sign. This kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, your favorite music is only your favorite music because of what you associate with it. It's like I don't like, it's pretty obvious that there are it's pretty obvious that there are some situations where what you know and what you have experienced in the past come into conflict. Like there has to be some mixture of the two.
Right.
And well, I mean, we've just shown a situation where your knowledge has nothing to do with the desire you feel to show the sign. It's what this sign is only, or like, not even with the desire, but like with the meaning with you associate that sign. This sign has more to do with experience than knowledge, right?
Right. But it doesn't have to do with an experience that's purely subjective, because you like we agreed, you can assume that there's some element of your experience of metal that's the same as the Balinese dude's experience of metal. Sure, there's probably some different associations that you have. Maybe
no,
like albums
I don't assume it's the same. No, I don't assume it's the same. No.
Well, then this is meaningless.
No, it's not.
Because it's like they could be listening, and their experience of metal, it's like there's something specific about what that music evokes for you that's related to those specific sounds and is not just about your subjective experience. For some reason, when they come and they experience those specific sounds,
Wait, oh
they
my
have
God,
they have a similar experience. And so when you go like this, you're connecting over what that experience is. Maybe you can't articulate it.
Okay,
Maybe it doesn't have anything to do with music theory.
Just
but
to be
there is
clear,
something
just to be
that's the
clear,
same.
just to be clear, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I kind of forgot what my
What I'm arguing against.
no, I forgot what my objection was.
You forgot about it.
I forgot about it.
It probably wasn't worth remembering.
It's not because I'm drinking. Yeah, that's not true.
Or smoking.
It's good. It's a good reminder. Thank you, Kendall. No, I mean there was something. Oh, was it okay. So I would agree that the reason that I associate this symbol with something, no, the reason that I could do this symbol, and the reason that a Balinese guy could do this symbol back to me, like, I agree that that's sort of that there's some experience that like there's some reason to associate that symbol with experience. It's just that I don't agree that it would be the same experience. Do you see what I mean?
It's not identical, but there is enough of a similarity that when you go like this and they go, yeah, you know that there's a genuine connection there. You're not both deluded. I mean, to me, like, just the ability to communicate at all depends on this needing to be to some extent.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Like,
okay, well, no, wait, hold on. To clarify my statement. Remember, earlier we were talking about the fact, like, we were talking about key color, and the fact that you could maybe potentially take, for most people, like I think we agree on this. You could take any given piece of music and just convert it down, even a pretty significant interval, like a I was gonna say like major third, but like let's go even farther. Let's say a perfect fifth, right?
Boom,
perfect fifth. That's about as drastic as you can get, right? So,
well, I mean, I don't know.
Let's move it down a major seventh, almost an entire octave. It's very drastic.
That sounds good.
All right.
That sounds good.
But you could listen to a piece of music that's been transposed down, and I could listen to the same piece of music that's not been transposed, and we could come away with the same sort of harmonic analysis and structural analysis, right? So, what I'm getting at is the idea that, like, I could make this same sign and another guy can make this same sign, but they could be coming at the meaning of that sign from two completely different directions. If you analyze a Mozart piece that's a perfect fifth down from the Mozart piece that I've listened to, we can come to the same conclusions about that piece, but it doesn't mean our experience is the same. Like, it's clearly not that our experience would not be the same.
It's not identical, but there's a lot there's enough that's relevantly the same.
But how do I know how much is relevantly the same?
You don't.
Exactly.
Don't know.
Thank you. That's
that
my
doesn't.
point.
I've never said that you know exactly how much is the same. That was my whole point about not being able to quantify it, but by having a certain ethic that's related to humility, but always searching for the connection. It's like you assume that the connection is possible.
That's
you
very
assume
poetic.
that it's real.
I must have missed something then, because I thought you were arguing against that idea.
Right, that you could, well, yeah, because I don't think you could quantify it, like, but I do think that it's really important that we don't deny objectivity. Like, there needs to be some kind of connection. Like, it very well could be that you go like this, and the Balinese guy goes like this, and you both think that you've connected. It very well could
we
be
haven't.
that
We
you're
haven't.
both deluded. But
Sure, yeah.
it's not. But to me, it's just as diluted to assume that there's never a connection. It's also extremely dark and cynical. Like, I think it's really important that we assume that there's a capacity to genuinely connect about what kind of experiences we're having,
Yeah.
despite the fact that we're trapped in this subjectivity and this embodied filter of our experience.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we can't, connect. And it's like, that it doesn't mean that you're a chauvinistic asshole thinking that all of your opinions are perfect and all of your first intuitive impressions are exactly, aligned with reality.
Yeah.
But but it's like there's a balance that needs to be struck.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That makes a lot of sense. Kendall Burks, can I talk to you about how difficult it's been for me today to not smoke cigarettes?
How difficult has it been?
It's been very, very difficult, and and the cat's back in. It's been really difficult, man. This has been my first day.
What are you trying to do? Are you trying to quit or what?
I'm trying to stay on quitting. Yeah. I quit for a very long time, and then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I quit for about 4 months, and then about a month ago when I was moving, shit got really stressful because just money. When you're, moving costs money. It's not a 1-to-1 correlation as far as like what you spent versus what you're spending. So moving costs money. It was money cost, and I was helping my girlfriend with some of her costs, and it's just stressful moving. Moving itself is super stressful. Yeah, so there's like one night where I felt so stressed to the point that my own mind was obnoxious to myself. I bought a pack of cigarettes. I was like, whatever, I'll smoke these over the next couple of days, and I'll be done. I'll go back to vaping or whatever, Yeah, it's been like a month later, and I've been smoking like half pack a day. Bad, man.
It's hard. Yeah, dude, that shit is. Yeah, dealing with addictions like that, it's like. Sometimes maybe for some people they can do that, where they can sort of indulge for a little bit and it doesn't just totally derail. Everybody has a different relationship with certain addictions, but yeah, being aware of when it's the kind of thing that you can't allow yourself that leniency, that's I don't know, that's important.
The worst part about it is the relationship between the addiction and the actual like byproduct of using the thing is so low. Like,
oh, like what you get out of it?
Yeah, like
The
honestly,
returns on an investment.
There's two times when it feels like it was worthwhile to smoke a cigarette. That's the first cigarette you smoke and the last cigarette you smoke. Every other cigarette between the two makes you feel sick. It precludes you from eating. Probably precludes you from. I say you, I mean me. It precludes you from eating because it's an appetite suppressant.
What's the last? Why is the last one good?
Because it's the first one it's the last one you smoke before you go to bed. You look forward to that last cigarette. I'm ready to go to bed. I'm gonna walk outside, and the air is nice, and I can see the stars, and it's nice nighttime, and I have a good cigarette. Like one is savored in some way. And the first one, at least for me, is because I usually make a pot of coffee before I smoke my first cigarette. And so the first cigarette of the day is like 9:30 in the morning, and it's a nice temperature outside. I'm outside, and I have like shorts on, like no shirt, and I'm just drinking a pot of coffee. Not a pot,
that's like
but
full on redneck.
I'm drinking it. Shut up, dude. It's not redneck. It's actually quite nice.
Well, you are from Florida.
It's actually quite nice, motherfucker. And a lot of times, like, I'll be listening to music, or like, if there was like some kind of like talk or debate that I was listening to, like, I'll pick up on it the next morning, and it's like the first cup of coffee of the day, the first sounds of the day, whether it's music or whatever, and then the first cigarette. And it's hard, man. Everything else between that just makes me feel like garbage. Like it saps my energy. It makes me feel tired.
Would it be possible for you to just do those first and last ones? Is that possible?
No. At least not so far. I mean, well, okay, no. Anything's possible, Kendall. I have not been able to manage a single day like that. But
right, that was my question: is whether you think that you could potentially do it.
I don't think the first and last. No, because today's the first day that I've not smoked any cigarettes for like a month. and I'm
Sort of
I'm
wigging
ready.
out.
Huh?
You're sort of wigging out a little bit.
No, I'm actually not. No, I'm actually not.
Oh,
If
but
I had,
it was difficult, but
yeah,
you did
if
all right.
I had smoked this morning, then I would have been wigging for 'em all day. I would have bought them by like 10 a.m. probably.
I see.
But if I don't have a cigarette first thing in the morning, it's a lot easier to last the whole day. So
Wow,
last night I
fascinating.
ended up just getting timed where I smoked my last cigarette last night before I went to bed. So that today I was like, I just won't buy cigarettes. It's been successful so far. Whatever fucking
Yeah,
time
dude,
it
that's
is.
tough, man.
Like it's like almost 11.
So you're pretty close. I mean,
Michael Smith
you could
subscribed to my channel. That might be spam.
Michael Smith. Yeah, that sounds fishy.
Sounds very fishy. I bet there's a bunch of guys out there named Michael Smith who every time they say the name, they get someone going, really? Okay, all right.
I had a student named Michael Smith.
Did you really?
Yep. He was not an ordinary person.
No?
I mean, I don't know if an ordinary person exists. I think most people are weird. Most people have something extraordinary going on, but
But
yeah,
he doesn't match
he
up
w-
to the idea of a
no,
Michael
no,
Smith.
he was a bit he was eccentric. You know, he listened to a lot of strange, um, but he's like he's a computer programmer and like things like that. But so not doesn't a lot of characteristics which put him in a minority demographic, but
Mm,
still called Michael Smith.
interesting. So
You can't judge a book by its cover.
Kendall Burks, you I'm sure have a lot of there's a sort of there's a set of like styles of music that you do play and styles of music that you don't play. I guess that's a really complicated way of saying things. Forget about that. What have you been listening to lately? Like have you discovered some artist or album lately that's been just sort of like been thinking a lot about, like it's been taking up your time, like
Hmm. Hmm. Well, so just I started listening. I don't know, man. My listening habits are weird because it's really hard for me to not associate what I listen to with what I'm about trying to do with my own. So there's like my own personal musical projects are tied up with what I'm. So it's like sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm sort of alienated from something like a bit of a more naive um, appreciation of music, which is something that I'm trying to. I don't know. It's maybe not ideal, but that's not really an answer to your question. But so like one thing I've been like
kind of
last
is
just
though.
yes, it kind of is right,
Kind of
right.
is.
It kind of is. So like partly I've been trying to, I don't know, I'm very interested in trying to establish a kind of melodic language that is compelling to me and um, like that I can maybe play on the guitar. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And so there's different things that I'm listening to I don't know, to take inspiration from. One of them is there's this Egyptian oud player
Mm-hmm.
called Hamza Eldin,
Mm-hmm.
who's quite amazing. And some of the melodic style of that is something that I like sort of am curious about and interested in. Um, some gamelan music, like there's certain like the melodic style of the trompong with in certain sections. Like it's not all the time. I'm not always digging the trompong in the same way. Um, like I mean, like I'm cool with it, but
No,
like
I
there's
got you. I got
sometimes
you.
where like there's certain instances where the melodic, like the way that it moves through the tones, is just freaking badass. I've been checking that out. Also, just last night I was listening to I discovered a bunch of Rindik,
Yeah, Rindic stuff.
which is
Cool.
the bamboo.
Yeah, the bamboo
Um,
stuff. Usually with
and
like
that
flute and like a small gong. which
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
really a
yeah.
gong as you think about it.
Yeah,
But
the stuff that I was listening didn't have a gong. But sometimes, yeah, I mean,
so
sometimes it does.
a lot
But
of times, it won't be a gong in the sense of like we might be thinking of it. There actually might be like Made had some at his compound. It's
yeah, like a
just
tone, like a oh,
it's a singular instrument with actually two keys that are
mm,
just offset and tuning.
right, right.
That's the only note that you can play is just those
Similar
two
effect,
keys. Yeah.
similar effect as a gong. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's the same role as a gong. Yeah. It
Hmm,
serves to
hmm.
mark. It doesn't like orally. It doesn't have the same effect at all, really. But
Yeah,
functionally,
yeah, but
it takes the place of a gong. Is that it shows these sort of like larger structural sort of beginnings
yeah,
and endings.
yeah. But so
Yeah.
that stuff is super cool, and a similar kind of genre is the Gender Wayang stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
which yeah, so I'm sort of, I don't know. Part of me is like, yeah, I gotta make something that's kind of like I want to try and compose something that's kind of like that uses guitars, but is kind of like Genderwayang slash Rindik slash I don't know other kind of
Sure.
melodic
Yeah.
styling slash Baroque type vibes, but that also has like maybe but basically like a rock band instrumentation where you have
Right.
two
Right.
guitars, a
Right.
bass, and a drum set,
Yeah.
but that is oriented towards that kind of melodic figuration.
I'm
And
I'm super interested to talk to you about the idea of composition and Balinese music. Let's take a short break because I really have to use the bathroom. So I'm gonna take a short break. We're gonna take a short break, and we'll talk about
do you
that in a
have like
second.
background music that you can play that's
No, I should though. I should though. Well, the thing is my channel is not monetized, obviously, because no one watches this shit. And so, wait, actually, you know what I could do? I could just go on
What?
mute, and you could play some stuff.
All right.
Let's do that.
All right, I'll be back. You'll
Kendall
be
Burks,
back.
everybody, on the roads.
I don't even think anybody's listening.
You're correct. We have 0 listeners.
Yeah.
Just jam.
Oh.
Kendall, do you remember the live stream you and I did a couple of years ago with Ross
With
Trotter.
Ross.
Yeah, with
Yeah,
Ross.
man.
Dude, that was so awesome. I tried to find that the other day. I can't find it.
Didn't Ross do it on his channel or something?
Yeah, on Spaceship Improv. But
But maybe did he maybe took it down or something?
I've
He's like, "Oh, I
searched
don't
for
like
Spaceship Improv. I've searched for Ross. No,
Yeah,
no,
maybe he
no.
doesn't.
Ross and I are cool. We've hung
No,
out.
I'm just kidding.
We've hung out a lot the past couple of years. I just can't find that video. I think it may just have been, I don't know. I don't know what happened to it, but it was great because I remember using your Tord piano, which is a great
Yeah, man,
sound.
that's awesome.
It's a great
Yeah,
sound.
dude, it's super cool.
I love that Tord piano. So before I had to take a break, we were talking about composition and sort of Balinese Gamelan in sort of different sort of threads of discourse. But you composed a piece for Balinese Gamelan, yeah, right?
Yeah, man.
Well, I want to talk about that.
You want to talk about it?
I want
All
to talk
right.
about that.
So yeah, so we composed it for the specific orchestra that we play. That's an Anklung, which Joe was referring to that earlier. That's a particular kind of genre, I guess, within the world of Balinese Gamelan.
Yeah, it's like a
that,
genre and
yeah.
a tuning and a sort of
And a
instrument.
toning. Yeah, totally, totally.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, genre maybe isn't the best word for it because there's
It kind of is though. It kind of is a genre though.
right. The
Depends on
way,
how you- it depends on how you-
sure. How you use the word genre, but yeah. So anyway, so that, and it was a super fun experience. It was something I worked towards. Did a lot of research leading up to it and practiced a lot, and it was a rewarding experience.
I remember listening to, on a lot of different occasions, like we would be going to a gig or like whatever, like, and we would be listening to, you'd be like, can I show you a section of my piece,
Yeah.
And what we were listening to was actually, it was not gamelan in the sense of the actual instruments being used, right?
Mhm.
Like this was all done on guitar and bass and drums, depending on the section,
Mhm.
So what was really fun for me was I got to listen to that piece in like two different instrumentations,
Yeah.
like I got really used to it in the Balinese instrumentation.
Mhm.
But I also
The
like,
guitar version.
yeah,
the
like the
melange.
guitar, the guitar melan, yeah, the guitar melan version. And so like you clearly spent a lot of time and a lot of thought like composing this piece. And the idea of a piece being done in double instrumentation is it's not a new idea, but the fact that the instrumentation was done by the composer, that's pretty unique, right? It's like there's tons of examples of somebody else re-instrumentating
Right.
or like reorchestrating someone else's music, but this is an example where like you wrote this for a particular instrumentation, but you also performed it on a different instrumentation. Like that's
Yeah, you're right. That's a little weird, isn't
that's super. It's not weird. It's cool as shit. Are you kidding?
Oh.
It's not weird. It's awesome.
I'm glad you think it's cool. I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
it's so cool.
It's super cool, I guess. But I guess for me, it's merely practical. Yeah, but that's I don't know. Maybe it's not. Yeah, I mean, it was the best way that I had of recording it since I didn't have gamelan instruments
Right. Yeah.
at my disposal. But that's not to say that
But-
but at the same
Okay.
time that well, yeah, go.
Well, okay. So I accepted for a long time that like, oh, Kendall did this because he did not have Balinese instruments at his disposal. But
Oh, but you've got another theory.
you could have at any point, and I maybe you have not considered, maybe never considered this. Okay, maybe that's true, but it seems to me like you would have at some point considered the fact that you could have gone to the Banjar and because like
I don't know. It's just the sheer amount of time that I spent recording it was not, because I was composing it at my house and I, spent many hours doing it, and it was much more, it was much easier to just record
Okay.
it
Okay. That
there,
makes sense.
and
Yeah.
like, many hours recording it there rather than driving half an hour and then spending time recording it on it. You know, it just, and then I'm
Oh yeah.
bothering Mike
Yeah.
and Jill and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess I was thinking more in terms of like going there once for a couple of hours and just sampling everything. But I see
right.
I see what you're saying, and like the place where you were composing it, you didn't have those things at your disposal,
Mm,
and so like you were
yeah,
thinking about things on the instrument. But here's the thing: everything that you've done in that piece, which is called Kayu Sakti, uh, it works on the instrument. It works on Balinese Gamelan. Like there's nothing
yeah,
awkward about it as far as instrumentation goes.
yeah.
Like
Well,
there's some.
I did take some care to try and do that. There's a couple things that are probably a little bit impractical, but or mostly
Which
there's
ones?
just one thing.
I'm
Just
curious.
the part where we have to where in the B section when the gongs stop playing and the rayong and drums are doing their thing, and then we come in with them, and they're supposed to do that,
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that part. I don't think it's very hard to do that accurately. It seems like it's not particularly idiomatic, but otherwise I tried to make it all idiomatic, and because I've played enough, I sort of have a feeling about what that is. um, and because it's stylistically, constrained more or less to a Balinese idiom, I think it fits in that way too.
Is there a particular gamelan piece that you seem to just come back to all the time? Like
Like to listen to and
yeah,
enjoy.
yeah. Like you just get like this. You get this feeling where like I want to listen to Balinese music. Balinese music. I'm gonna listen to this thing, this particular piece, recording, ensemble, whatever.
Well, that recording, the gong orchestra of Moonduk, that has that red recording,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
red
yeah,
cover. That
yeah.
one's super. That one's good, but I don't know if that's
Danugiri.
like objectively. Yeah, yep,
Danugiri is a banger.
it's a banger for
That's a
sure.
fucking
And
banger.
yeah, yeah, dude, it's badass. So
Oh,
I
you know
listened to
what?
that a bunch when I was, yeah, trying to figure out what to do with my own piece.
You know what's great? No one's listening, and I'm not monetized, so I can listen to whatever the fuck I want. Do you want to listen to Danugiri with me, real quick, or at least part of it?
Yeah, sure.
You know what?
It's
I
not.
don't. I'm curious actually. Let's because I can share my screen with you and my sound, but I'm curious as to what it sounds like for you. So
If
like
it's like
let's
good.
yeah. So because it might seem to
I thought it's.
be
Huh.
the better experience would be if I just send you the recording and you play it yourself. Let's do
Well, just try it because I don't know. I'd be curious.
Okay, cool. Let me show you. Should we listen to Danugiri or should we listen to something else?
Danugiri's cool. Check out this thing real quick. It's gonna sound like shit, but it's like multiple layers of.
Wait, hold on. Can you share your computer with me or?
No, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna
Okay.
share it with
All
you.
right.
This technology. Just to show you, I texted it to you, just to sort of give you a flavor of part of what I've been exploring. It's like 20 seconds. It's not a track. It's just like a fragment. What you could, well, you could open it on your computer probably. Yeah, what kind of a computer do you have? Do you have a Mac? Well, then I don't know. Do what you got to do.
I think
Man, I don't know if this. Jeez. Like, huh. Yeah. Right. Well, I wonder. I mean, I know there's you know, there's certain stock forms that are used over and over again. Um, I mean, there's flexibility within them, but you know, what's going on? Is it working? Your vocal mic is significantly lower volume now.
How is that?
That's much better. It's
Cool.
much more like it was. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, dude. Every time I try to stream with my computer, it just gets so slow.
Right. Well,
so it's just stuck on loading Google Drive.
Yeah, dude, don't worry about it. It's all right, dude.
Oh man. All right, shit, loaded. I got 3-layer pent, loop, M4A.
Yep, 3-layer pant.
3-layer pant. Right, let me put this on the stream.
I mean, it's like a, you know, very short loop.
How can I do this? Not easily. Here, I'm gonna share my screen with you. Share sound. Share drive. Boom. All right, let's see what this sounds like.
That's what, you don't need to listen to it again. I mean, honestly, that's probably sufficient.
Oh, dude, that's weird. Oh, I love it. Hold on.
It's just in 4/4, dude.
You're feeling this.
I can't tell.
Yeah, like it was out of sync. I'm feeling like
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I guess yeah, yeah. So you, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's the little high guitar part. Those are 16th notes just with just in groups of four.
and that starts on the first. It's like
Yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, the
higher note.
downbeat.
So all right, hold on.
So it's like a large.
What, it's so ambiguous. It could be a lot of different fucking feels because you could feel it. But like I'm feeling that first 16th note as the like sort of the pickup. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally.
That's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
I felt
yeah.
it. Let's try that again.
That's so yeah. If you list like the top part.
Oh, I'm also not feeling it in 4. I'm feeling it in 3.
Yes, that well, so that's yes, and that's so it's definitely in yeah 4, I guess. I mean,
That's cool, dude. I fucking love that.
so that pattern is just I just ripped that off. That's I mean that's just a,
Okay, what is this one?
this
Pentatonic,
is
interlocking, kotekon.
so they're just so like I'm exploring what it's like if you do sort of a kotekon style interlocking part with two guitars, but where you allow all the notes to ring out so that there's just sort of nice you know pentatonic-y harmony. But it's just a short melody. But so I'm using pretty stock like Balinese kotekon language. So that's maybe a little less. Oh, I don't know.
So this is not looped. It's like it's the same thing 4 times, but it's not looped, right? Like,
Oh, I think it is looped.
but
I think.
it's not like played 4 times in a row, right? Whatever.
I didn't. Well, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So are you playing all these parts at the same time, or is this a
This is
layered?
two parts. It's just two parts.
Is that like the
Yeah,
top
yeah.
part?
So.
Oh,
That kind of thing.
wow, it's more complex than I thought. Damn, I just want you to sing it all the time.
Play it. Just fucking play it. Anyways. Yep. There was that one. There was one more on there. It's okay.
Which
You
one
don't.
is
I
it?
mean,
Is it the cool interlocking chromatic?
yeah. You like the titles are not meant for public consumption.
Sorry.
I mean, I don't care. I'm just saying. Like, it's just a disclaimer.
Man,
gonna be the title of my next album. Cool interlocking chromatic.
I love it. I love it. Are you gonna release it under the name White Tiger of Bali?
White Tiger of
Or are you
Bali.
gonna be a coward? Or are you gonna be a fucking coward and you're just gonna say Kendall Burks?
Kendall Burks. Yeah, I'm probably gonna be a coward. I feel pretty cowardly
We
when it comes to my name.
gave you the name of a century, dude, and you won't take it.
Of course, I won't take it. I don't. I don't. I don't know. I don't want. I don't want to. I don't. I don't want to accept the distinction. Okay, so this one I take a little bit more liberty. It's not so much Balinese in derivation, and I use more chromaticism, which is definitely not Balinese.
Dude. So you're thinking of this as two separate parts, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear it as a composite though, for
Okay.
sure. Like, but yeah, like, yeah, I mean, I split it up into two parts so that it can be played in that way. But I definitely think of it as. So that's how yeah, and then I have to figure out how to play it as two separate parts. I don't know, but I like that sort of chromatic shifting where you're using just like these distinctive, these two different pentatonic scales, but they have a common tone. Sort of a, so it's just an idea I want to try and